So the central theme of these 2 days is disinformation, but we have to know that disinformation is not a new thing. But first, a quiz for all of you. I'd like you to look at this, please, a quiz. What do these people have in common? Take a look. Number 1, number 2, number 3. What do these people have in common? Face. They do not exist is correct. Those people do not exist. We're in a realm not only of text information and video, but humans that do not exist. And so if you take a look back at the history of fake news and disinformation, you actually need to go back about 2,000 years. If you look back at the bitter rivalry between Octavian and Mark Antony in ancient Rome, the story was that Octavian stole the will, the last will and testament of Mark Antony while he was away with his lover Cleopatra. And he read this will to the Senate. And in the will, he claimed that he had given all his allegiances, Mark Antony, and indeed to Cleopatra's sons as his heirs, to a foreigner. And so he mobilized the anti-foreign sentiment against Mark Antony. So this is not a new thing. But what has changed over the last 2,000 years? Well, a lot. And first, of course, the notion that there are experts. Tom Nichols wrote brilliantly in this recent book, The Death of Expertise. And here's what's happened. When you can Google anything, when you can look up anything, who needs an expert? And so people go to the doctor and they tell the doctor what they think they have. They can run foreign policy by doing a few Googles or tweets. People don't believe they need an expert anymore. And so who do you look to as an authority when everybody is an authority on everything? So the death of expertise is a very powerful force when you think about disinformation. The next one, and you heard this a lot yesterday, this notion of ripping societies and groups apart. This hyper tribal polarization is another very powerful force. But what's different is the scale and the velocity when you look at it in social media. And deep fakes, you heard yesterday, you'll see more today about the power of technology to create voice and photos, fake people that never existed, videos that are going to become more and more difficult to discern what is real and what is fake. These are new. Here's an example. This is an example of something called Generative Adversarial Networks, GAN. And this is how machines in artificial intelligence learn now. They're creating new humans. They take this person and each one of those, and they make, when they mix them, a new human. You can make new humans. Go ahead. And they all defy all of our cynicism and expectations. We look at them, they look perfectly human to me, but they're not. They're created by computers. So you can have fake people who have real followers. Fake people with real audiences. Audiences who get angry. Audiences who get whipped up. And their leader does not exist. Here's one. Jenna Abrams. Looks pretty real to me. Well, except that Jenna Abrams was not a real human and had a pretty substantial following and turned out to whip people into a frenzy on issues that were highly divisive in the United States. So not only do you create a fake human, you create a real audience who follows that fake human. This is something called a deep video portrait. If we put the audio up, please.
We are the first to transfer the full 3D head pose, facial expression, eye gaze, and eye blinking from a source actor to a monocular portrait video of a target actor.
See, what's happening is this is a real human, and then it can take an existing video and change the existing video with the real-time live facial movement of the real human by combining the two.
Using our approach, we can also provide interactive user control over video portraits. This enables live modification of the rigid head pose, facial expression, and eye motion.
So it gets harder and harder to know what is real and what isn't. And you're going to hear from others who are in the arms race of technology to detect deep fakes, to help protect you, to figure out what is real and what is not real, whether they are photos or videos. But is that going to work? Well, you may remember Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon said, this is not an era of persuasion. It's an era of mobilization. People now move in tribes. Persuasion is highly overrated. Here's the problem. The best guess by evolutionary scholars and evolutionary biologists is the brain that you and I are using right now in this room was wired long ago. It was not wired this morning or yesterday. Their best guess is we're using a software and operating system, our brain, that is about 40,000 years old. If you've ever tried to use outdated software on a MacBook, you know it's really frustrating and full of bugs. Now try using a human software that is 40,000 years out of date, trying to make sense of deep fakes. So we're wired for dirt, but we're living in a very complex and complicated life of digital. This creates what are called cognitive biases, these hiccups in the way humans make sense of things. Antonio Damasio, the neuroscientist who discovered actually where and how in the brain humans make decisions, found that there are two very specific parts of the brain that must work together for any of you to make a decision. And if there's a disruption to that communication between the two parts, you find it impossible to make a sound decision. Now, it's not left brain and right brain. Think of it more like a symphony with two different instruments in the symphony that must play together. Those two instruments, if you're interested, the first is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is shaped like an almond. There are two of them, way down in the earliest evolved part of the brain, and they're called the original fight or flight center of the brain. They're the reason you're all in the room today, because your ancestors either ran away or killed somebody. That's it. So the amygdala is very powerful, but if you only had that, it's a bit rude and aggressive. It's often what teenagers do. So the other part of the brain, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, straight through here, makes sense of those raw signals from the amygdala to help you balance out your decision making. And there is a takeaway from that, which is between the two, one is the senior partner, and that is the amygdala, the raw emotion governor. So humans, he says, are not thinking machines. They are feeling machines that think. Really important to remember when you're trying to be very scientific and rational with people in the midst of deep fakes. So one of the big biases is called confirmation bias, and this is true of all of us as humans to a greater or lesser degree. And you've heard about it in terms of filter bubble or motivated reasoning. Basically, this is it for humans. if I deeply believe something, and you show me evidence that I am wrong, my reaction is not to thank you for setting me straight and change my mind. My reaction is to say your evidence is fake news. I do not believe your evidence. And this, by the way, is not stupid. It's human. We are wired to discount the evidence that we are wrong. In fact, in brain scans, when people are shown evidence they are wrong, the parts of the brain like the insula and the anterior cingulate cortex become very active, and they are pain indicators. It's going to hurt to be wrong. And so we discount any evidence that might say we're wrong. Next is identity. And this is all powerful for humans because this is how we survived. We survived in groups. I've got your back. You're part of my tribe. And the moment you feel you're going to be thrown out of your group, that's an existential threat. So you will do anything to remain in the group, including deny evidence. This is a test. It's a test that's been around for decades called the Ash experiment. And I'm going to give it to you right now. The bar on the far left is the control bar. The other 3 bars are 1, 2, and 3. Simple test. Which one of these bars, 1, 2, or 3, is the same height as the control bar? Go ahead, shout it out. Which one? 1, 2, or 3? Exactly. Gesundheit. Number 1, you would say, right? Well, what if you're in a room and there are 7 of you, and you're one of 7, and the 6 other people look at exactly that and say, no, it's not number 1, it's number 2. Here's what happens to humans.
Subject 1. 2. Subject 2.
2.
Subject 3.
As this subject hears the rest of the group give the wrong answer, he initially resists the influence of group pressure.
Subject 6. 1.
Most subjects start out defying the group, but after repeated trials, many of them begin to conform.
2.
Subject 4.
2.
Subject 5.
2.
Subject 6.
2.
Subject 7.
2.
Subject number 4, what is your response?
1.
Subject number 5.
1.
Subject number 6, your turn.
1.
Their voices may drop. They may know they're giving the wrong answers, but they eventually give in.
2.
Once we have the pressure of the tribe around us, we will defy our own eyes to not get kicked out of the tribe. This is what it looks like when you think about filter bubbles in social media. Our likes, our comments, our friends, we are self-selecting. Unfortunately, the internet, social media, did not bring us a huge, open-minded tolerance of other ideas. It made us more intensely tribal. And it makes us feel a bit like this. Stop it! So how do we stop it? Well, you're going to hear about and have heard about using technology to help stop it. A kind of arms race of detecting fakes. Well, that sounds smart, but we look at agencies like DARPA and others who are racing with technology to try to help us do this. That sounds helpful. Here's one from DARPA.
The physics program, Metaphor, started in 2016. The program is created in response to the accelerating rate with which new machine learning technologies were enabling the fabrication of believable fake pictures, video, and audio. An integrity score is displayed in the user interface for each analytic. The lower the score, the lower the integrity of the media element, and the more likely it is that it's been manipulated. Here, we can see where the analytics believe this picture is manipulated. The results of each analytic can be interacted with to assist a human expert analyst in making an assessment. As new analytics are developed, they will be exposed in the same manner. In this way, we ensure that as manipulation techniques evolve, new detectors can be made useful to analysts quickly. Our next example will be a deep fake. In June 2019, an AI-generated image was used to create a LinkedIn profile to spearfish U.S. policy experts. You can read more about that by searching for Katie Jones AI LinkedIn. The use of an AI-generated face avoided the technique of using reverse image search to detect the fake profile trivially. There are currently a handful of publicly available demonstrations of the power of GAN-generated media, such as FaceApp or thispersondoesnotexist.com. Here, we've downloaded several faces from This Person Does Not Exist and allowed the Metaphor Analytics to take a look at them. Several of the Metaphor Analytics believe them to be true images. However, the CNN-based GAN detector is certain that this image is not real. It gave it an integrity score of 0%.
So, again, helpful. If you go to thisisnotaperson.com and you see these fakes and you say, hey, I can tell this is not a real person, that seems helpful, doesn't it? So what's the problem with all of us using technology to seek the truth?
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
We can't handle the truth is part of the problem. Because when you look at why people post fake news, even if you tell them, in many cases, what you just posted is fake, their reaction may not be to be mortified and to take it down. Their reaction may be, so? Because it fits their tribal identity and narrative. And so the notion that merely detecting fakes is the solution, I put to you, not if you're dealing with humans. And I suspect most of you are human. So this is a real challenge beyond technology. And in MIT's latest studies in this, they found, for example, that falsehood is spread more widely, more deeply. People prefer sharing falsehoods. They prefer sharing falsehoods. And therefore, when you think about fact-checking, well, here's where fact-checking fails. What if your facts go against my beliefs? And your fact-checking says my beliefs are wrong. Go back to the 40,000-year-old brain. What happens? Pain. I'm going to discount your fact-checker. Because in an age where there are no longer any experts, who do I turn to be the referee? I just think that this hurts, and I'm going to reject it. So here's an example with smart people, scientists, of how this works in an incredibly insidious way. This was a real test done by the Yale Cultural Cognition Project. What you're looking at is they were testing people for their scientific literacy. Can you read a chart? And in this, they said, there's this new skin cream, and we're testing whether or not it made the rash better or made the rash worse or didn't work. And when they looked at the test of the table of making the rash worse, and then they redid it the opposite way, it made the rash get better, people largely could read this who were tested. They could get the right conclusion from it. And then they did it with exactly the same numbers, but with guns. And they said whether or not guns would reduce crime or increase crime. And here's what happened. When it was about a rash and cream, the left and the right, the more numerate they were, the more scientifically literate they were, the more they understood and could read the graph all together. No problem. But when you changed it to an issue with beliefs like guns, the same numbers, that's what happened. People who could read numbers no longer could read numbers because the numbers conflicted with their beliefs. This is a very powerful thing that goes very deeply into the brain and even tested against protected beliefs and non-protected beliefs. Protected beliefs, the power in the brain are the big dark blue bars. The non-protected beliefs, meaning beliefs that are not that important to you, are the small green bars. And it depends actually in some cases on ethnicity and nationality how big that gap is. between protected values and unprotected values. The takeaway is, if you're human and somebody shows you evidence that a protected value of yours is in any way wrong, you of course are going to reject that evidence. So what do? Here's a quick solution that's going to take a long time. 1, education starting with children at the earliest age, critical thinking, scientific method, and then 2, there's something that's used in counterterrorism and now used in work I do with vaccine hesitancy, formers and convert communicators. People who are from your tribe who have changed their minds. Because it's really the very first thing is whether or not they're from your tribe that matters, and if they're from the enemy or rival or outsider, the outgroup, they are never going to change your mind unless you're an extraordinarily analytic, reflective human being. And most, it turns out, are not. So those two things, education from the earliest levels about media literacy, scientific method, critical thinking, from the earliest levels teach your children and make it part of a curriculum. And then the second one, use convert communicators and formers. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I haven't depressed you too much about the state of our species, but I think it's important to take this on board as we look at solutions to understand we are the problem. Thank you very much.